Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL podcast, 3 Yards in a Cloud of Dust. As always, I'm your host, Josh, and joining me once again, as always, my co host, Johnny.
Hello to the people.
So, we have a crazy amount to talk about today. So, some of it may seem like we're going through everything a little fast. Just we're trying to get the most notable stuff out there. So that way you have the news. First up is retirements. We have a couple of noticeable retirements. Johnny, go ahead and hit them with the first one.
The first one is actually the safety of Patrick Chung from the Patriots.
Which was actually kind of a little bit of a surprise because he opted out of last year because of the COVID virus.
Yeah.
And everybody thought he was coming back this year to be a big staple of the defense. And then, of course, a couple of days ago, we get the announcement that he's retiring.
Because he also does have a family, and I think he took his family into play, and...
Not to mention, he's been in the league for 11 years.
Yeah, so he probably has the money away, and he wanted to make sure his family stayed safe from everything. So if he came out with retirement a couple of years down the road, that wouldn't surprise me. But at the moment, he's just going to stay retired.
And then next up, we have offensive tackle Donald Penn, who was a part of the Raiders team. I forget who he was with before that, but then the Raiders let him go a couple of years ago. But he, just a few days ago, re-signed a one-day deal to retire as a Raider. So he has officially called it a career as well. And then last but most certainly not least, we finally got the announcement that so many people were expecting after the end of the NFC Championship game. Quarterback, legendary, absolute legendary quarterback, Drew Brees, has officially retired from the NFL.
Which we will hit later on in the episode because we're going to go a little bit more in depth to what his career enticed.
But first, I just kind of want to get your feelings on, what it is, like, as an NFL fan, how are you feeling right now with this announcement, this big announcement of this legendary player retiring?
It's upsetting. He was a great player. He absolutely was one of the better ones that actually could match up with Tom Brady himself and Aaron Rodgers combined. And he was probably one of the few who were able to match them and actually win games against them.
Yeah.
Being two of the other best quarterbacks in the league.
I mean, yeah, for me, I am sad to see him go because once again, he's been a part of the NFL for so long now. He's been a part of just so much for so long now.
Yeah.
It is sad to see him go, but also I got to give him credit for being able to stick it out for as long as he's 42.
Yeah.
He retired at 42. Yeah, I know Tom Brady's a little bit older, but you really don't. There've only been a couple of quarterbacks who have made it this long in their career. I think Peyton Manning was in his early 40s when he retired as well.
Yeah, and it's like you also did get the fact that when he actually did say his announcement for his retirement, he actually did say he could play one more season, but he knew it was time to hang up the cleats and retire.
Yeah, and it's probably a good thing for the Saints going forward because now that question of will he, won't he come back for the next year is done. It's been decided.
Yeah, and I think he kind of held out just a little bit just so he could chat with the front office and be able to figure out who would be the best fit to pick up in the draft just to give them his point of view before he fully retired.
Yeah, and then of course everything that we're hearing coming out of New Orleans right now is it's going to be a competition for the number one QB spot between Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston.
Yeah. Which is definitely going to be interesting who gets to get taken first.
Yeah. I think Taysom Hill probably has the better chance of being the number one starter next year.
Yeah, because he's been behind Drew Brees a little bit longer, so was able to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, that, and I think he's the better of the two quarterbacks, to be honest.
And hopefully it's like what Drew Brees showed him and taught him kind of carries over to what he does with the next QB.
Yeah, the only downside to Taysom Hill is that he's already in his 30s, or is going to be in his 30s very soon. So you've kind of lost out on several young years of his.
But he's coming in directly at his prime as a starter.
That very well could be.
Which could be probably one of the best things, or we could have another Aaron Rodgers situation where his prime is not good, but his couple years after his prime, he shoots back up again.
You could almost argue that Aaron Rodgers is going through his prime right now.
Oh yeah, his prime is pretty much after what the normal prime is.
Yeah, and then the only other shame for seeing Drew Brees going now is that he never got his second Super Bowl.
Yeah, but he's happy with the one. He was able to say, hey, he won the Super Bowl. Yeah. He can at least say that. Not a lot of callbacks can say that.
And I mean, with the amount of records he holds currently in the NFL, it's just crazy.
I highly doubt even Tom Brady will pass one of them before he retires.
I don't know. That's one of the things that we do need to talk about is this new contract extension for Tom Brady.
Yeah, so which we'll get a little bit later on in the episode.
Yeah. So moving on, we have, of course, after we recorded last week. Excuse me. After we recorded last week, the day after, I believe, was the franchise tag deadline. And the players that we got franchise tagged were Chris Godwin, wide receiver Chris Godwin by the Bucks, wide receiver Allen Robinson with the Bears, safety Marcus Williams with the Saints, safety Justin Simmons with the Broncos, offensive tackle Taylor Morton with the Panthers. You have free safety Marcus May being franchise tagged by the Jets, defensive tackle Leonard Williams franchise tagged by the Giants, and guard Brandon Scherf being tagged by the Washington football team, and then tackle Cam Robinson being tagged by the Jaguars. And that's it for our franchise tags this year.
Which is surprising because I was really expecting a few more to pop up.
Especially with how limited the cap space is this year.
Yeah.
But then again, that could have also, teams that were already close to their cap space, that could have been the deterring factor to why they didn't end up franchise tagging someone.
Yeah.
Because remember, the franchise tag is equal to the top 4 franchise tags for that position for the year. Mm-hmm. So whatever the top 4 are making, that guy's all, whoever you tag for that position is also going to make that much. Yeah. So that could be that was most likely a deciding factor into why we didn't get more tags this year.
Because since the salary cap for all the teams dropped, now a lot of them have to make some serious moves to make up for that salary cap.
And have we seen some insane moves going on in just the last couple of days?
And that one trade that I wish happened between the Seahawks and the Bears.
Yeah, unfortunately, that one. So let's go ahead and talk about that one real quick. There were stories coming out about a proposed trade deal between the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks for Russell Wilson. And from the sources that we've heard from, it's that the Bears offered Seattle 3 first-round picks, a 3rd-round pick, and 2 starters. Like, I'm talking about top starters right now that Seattle could have picked from basically anyone on their team.
Yeah.
For Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks said no.
The Seahawks head coach said no. It didn't even get to the head office.
Well, I mean, he has a lot of power. Pete Carroll has a lot of power right now in Seattle, and that was one of the things that we were hearing coming from Russell himself, saying that he wasn't happy about. And then, of course...
Because Russell Wilson did say that if he did leave because he's kind of fed up with the front office and everything, he does end up wanting to leave, and the Bears is one of the spots he wants to land.
Yeah. So this tells me either one of 2 things. And number one is that Russell Wilson was never actually on the market in the first place. Even though he may be upset with what's going on, Seattle never had any actual interest in trying to trade him.
No, it's like Seattle wasn't planning on trading him, but he wants to get out though. But he is still gonna play the best he can to keep showing everyone, hey, I'm still as good as I was. I am still here. I am still great.
Yeah. And then the number two thing was it basically combines what I said for number one, that they never had any intention of trading him in the first place. But number two is that plus the fact that maybe Pete Carroll's time in Seattle may be close to being done, either through retirement or some other deal that's coming down the line. And
He wants to end with Russell Wilson.
no. Well, yeah, but what I'm thinking is, so what happens is when a lot of new head coaches or front office, GMs come in, players that are already on the team, whether or not they're good, become expendable. And that's when oftentimes when you get a new head coach and a new GM coming in, you see a fire sale of good players for draft capital. That's what happened with the Raiders with John Gruden and Mike Mayock.
It's like they probably want to keep Russell Wilson, but Raiders also had the good opportunity when they did it, which was when they switched the head coach and the GM. Was okay when they did it, but wasn't the best choice since they had a decent team already. All they had to do was add to it, but they wanted to strip it and make a new team.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just so my thinking is that maybe some changes in the front office are coming, and so they were kind of testing the water to see exactly what they could get for Russell Wilson when the time comes.
But here's the thing: it's like with Russell Wilson, it's like what they could get for him.
They just showed that they could get a lot for him.
Yeah, but
three first-round picks? Are you kidding me?
But here's the thing: it's like the Bears want him, but you look 2-3 years down the line, that could completely change the highest thing.
That's very true.
They could only get like one
at this
round,
point,
1 third round.
Yeah, that's very true. At this point, they're essentially banking on Russell Wilson still being as good 2, 3, 4 years down the line, which may not necessarily be the case.
No, because he's hitting his prime around now too. He's starting to actually get towards the end of his prime, actually.
Yeah. So my thinking is that if they're not going to trade him, he'll probably end up being in Seattle until he's a free agent, and then he just decides not to re-sign with the team and move on somewhere else, which would be an absolute waste for Seattle if that ends up happening.
Because I want to say he still has 1 year left on his contract or 2.
Something like that.
But he has at the most 2 years.
Yeah, but the one biggest question that this kind of relays to me is just how tenuous is the relationship really in Seattle between Russell Wilson and the front office. If they're not willing, I get it. Russell is very talented. He's a great quarterback. You wouldn't want to let him go. It's very similar to the situation that's going on in Houston right now, which we'll talk about too a little bit later, just to kind of give it a little bit of mention that we are keeping track of what is going on in Houston, which is absolutely nuts if the rumors we're hearing are true.
It's just going to be completely insane.
Yeah. But moving on to the rest of the signings, guy who got paid this offseason, offensive tackle Trent Williams signs a 6-year, $138 million deal with the 49ers.
Now, that is he ended up now being the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL in this day and age now.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Because we have not seen that type of deal in quite some time.
At least not for a lineman.
No.
Especially an offensive lineman. Then we've got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who we thought you didn't think it, I did, because I had heard rumors that he was going to retire. He actually signs a 1-year, $12 million deal with Washington.
And then you also have Curtis Samuel, the wide receiver, who also signed a 3-year, $35.5 million with Washington too.
Which is a big steal for Washington because Curtis Samuel is a very good wide receiver, and they steal him away from the Panthers, who desperately needed him to stay there.
Yeah, and I guarantee you there was something else going on with the Panthers and him, and that ended up having him choose to go and sign with another team,
Yeah.
which ended up being Washington.
And then we've got a couple of re-signings out of Tampa Bay. Levante David has re-signed for a 2-year deal worth $25 million, and Rob Gronkowski has re-signed with the Bucks on a 1-year deal for only $10 million, though.
Which I'm not surprised about them. I already knew they were going to re-sign Gronk with Tom Brady still being on the team.
Yeah, and Levante David, that's obviously an easy re-sign. He is basically the core of your linebackers. He's everything that they've built that linebacking core around. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. There was rumors of Gronk potentially going to the Bills, but I don't think that was ever really substantiated.
No, that was just a small rumor, but we all knew that he was going to stay with Tom Brady. We already knew that.
Yeah. Next, we've got another steal from, this time, a steal from the Packers by the Chargers, who signed center Corey Linsley to a 5-year, $62.5 million deal.
Which does not surprise me because he wanted to get out of the Jags for a little bit now. So
He was with the Packers, not the Jags.
Packers, thank you.
I didn't hear that. I wasn't aware that he wanted out of Green Bay.
With the last couple of years, he didn't really try and make it known, but there was like bits and pieces. If you pay attention to some of what he was saying, kind of gave the hint that he wanted out.
Maybe he felt he wasn't getting recognized for his contributions.
So basically, it ended up coming down to basically when he became a free agent to go to a different team, and so I guarantee you, at least last year, he's been chatting with them for this team for quite some time, and ended up going to them in free agency.
Well, next we've got a smart move that the Packers did make, and that is re-signing Aaron Jones to a 4-year, $48 million deal.
Yeah, he is probably one of the best running backs and best wide receivers out of the backfield that you could get.
Yeah. Now, they did let Jamal Williams go, but they've got...
But that was also to free up some cap space, too, so they could resign.
Yeah, they've got solid running backs behind him. I think they're going to be fine with the running back core this coming year. So look for the running backs to be just as good as last year as they were this year.
Oh, yeah.
All right, sorry. Reverse that. Just as good this year as they were last year.
And then we have a Titans signing with Bud Dupree, an edge tackle, going to the Titans for a 5-year, $82.5 million.
Which is huge because the Titans just stole Bud Dupree away from the Steelers. That's another steal here in free agency, which is crazy.
There's a lot of steals going on, and
it's all due to the salary cap.
And I guarantee this is not done.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy to see what the next couple of days are going to be like.
Oh, this is going to go on for at least 2 more weeks.
And we're not even done with what we have to talk about for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Since free agency officially started, what was it, Tuesday?
I believe so.
Yeah. Which is essentially the start of the league year. Or I think the league year officially started yesterday or something like that. But what they call the tampering period opened up on Tuesday, and then free agency officially started, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, and then we have Jacoby
Brissett signing a 1-year, $7.5 million deal with the Dolphins to be backup for Tua Tagovailoa.
Which is actually a good pickup, too, because he is actually a good backup, but he's a decent starter. So if for some reason Tua has to go out because of injury or illness, at least you have a decent backup that can actually do a starting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, his couple of years with the Indianapolis Colts didn't do him any favors because obviously, 1 year that he was there, he was solely the backup to Andrew Luck, and then he got thrust into the unfortunate situation when Andrew Luck suddenly retired on the Colts, and then they had no other choice but to go with Brissett because when Luck decided to retire, which was like right before the season started.
Yeah, and then, which he did make I think Andrew Luck did make the right decision with retiring when he did because he was taking a lot of hits, and he did get a couple concussions just in the few years he was playing.
Yeah. But a lot of people do forget that Brissett started his career behind Tom Brady.
Yeah, which is
in New England,
which is not a bad person to start behind.
No, I mean take a look at the likes of Matt Castle and Jimmy Garoppolo. They both have had success, mind you. Jimmy took his team to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but they inevitably lost to the Kansas City Chiefs.
But you also got to remember they were facing Patrick Mahomes,
right?
Who was one of the top prospects to win the Super Bowl within the first 3 years of him playing.
And then, of course, Matt Castle unfortunately never made it. I know he made it to the playoffs a couple of times when he was head of the Chiefs, but he never made it to the Super Bowl outside of New England.
Yeah.
But he did have that really good year when he came in for when Tom Brady went down with that gruesome ankle injury.
Oh, yeah.
So he ended up playing really well.
Which probably did.
Whether that was due to his skill level or, the coaching of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and the team that they had built for Tom.
Yeah.
That's still kind of, some people say that that's the case and that, he never really was a really good starting caliber quarterback, but he did have some decent years in Kansas City, so.
Oh, yeah, so it was definitely a good choice to pick him up and continue with him.
Yeah, but this is a good signing for Jacoby Brissett. This is good for the Dolphins. They get a player that's very similar to Tua. Yeah. In the fact that he can move around in the pocket, he's very mobile,
and if I'm correct, he's still within his late 20s, I believe.
I believe so too.
Because I
either that or he's early 30s.
I don't think he's 30 yet. That's why I'm saying 28, 29, I believe is where he is.
Yeah, and then kind of a surprise signing down in Houston is Tyrod Taylor, who was brought into San Diego to be the interim starting quarterback before he was unfortunately injured last year, and then Justin Herbert took over. Sorry, did I say San Diego? I meant L.A. Yeah. I'm still not used to calling them the L.A. Chargers. So for so many years, for me, they've just been the San Diego Chargers because they were rivals of the Raiders. Technically they are still division rivals of the Raiders, but
yeah, but I get what you're saying. But
yeah.
But Tyrod Taylor he just signed a 1-year contract worth $12.5 million.
Yeah, so that's.
With the
Houston this kind of lends me to believe that Houston may actually be willing to trade Deshaun Watson because they signed him. That's a big deal for a
backup.
Yeah, well, just for a random quarterback that they're bringing off the streets. You really don't see deals like that. You got Ryan Fitzpatrick who signed with Washington for $12 million, but he's most likely going to be their starter next year.
Yeah.
So
because they probably know that Deshaun Watson is probably going to set this season.
Yeah.
Which means they can get for him will drop.
Now, okay, with everything that is going on in Houston right now. So I guess we can kind of talk about it. So the rumors, well, not rumors. Apparently, Deshaun Watson is being sued for, was it sexual harassment or sexual assault?
Sexual content.
Okay. So basically, sexual assault. Somebody has claimed that he basically mistreated them sexually, and he's of course disputing it.
And he did say on YouTube, it's like, because he is only 25, he's like, I would never actually treat a woman like that, which means that his mother did teach him correctly.
Well, given the way we've seen him in interviews and just generally, the glimpses that we get of him out in the public.
That's just not his personality.
No, yeah, it just doesn't seem like him.
This is out of the ordinary for even him.
Yeah.
So this has to be doing with something. This is like a giant rumor that ended up going into a lawsuit because of the Texans wanting to show, hey, we're not the bad guys here.
Yeah, that would be terrible if that is true, because there is the rumor that this was started by the Texans front office, so like you said, they wouldn't seem like the bad guys when they go and trade them, especially after the DeAndre Hopkins fiasco trade last year, because obviously that trade did not work out for the Texans at all.
No.
And mainly, Hopkins was traded because he didn't like what was going on in the front office. He spoke up vocally about it, and they said, okay, we'll hit the bricks.
And so I'm hoping with this lawsuit, this actually ends up going in Watson's favor, and that
I hope that justice is properly served, because we can't say with 100% that we know for a fact Deshaun didn't do it.
yeah.
But we have no evidence supporting that he did do it, except beyond what this other person has claimed.
Yeah.
It is literally a he said, she said deal. So I hope that justice is served properly. That's it. That's all we can say. That is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And if it turns out that this is just BS made up by the Texans front office or management staff or whatever you want to call them, you have karma coming for you.
Oh, will it? And because if this ends up being, well, it was just a rumor and all this lawsuit was just a host, if Deshaun Watson ends up getting on a different team, he is going to play his best game against you guys that he has ever played. And he will force you guys to do the best you guys and still somehow destroy you.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, though, because we do have a few other things that we need to get to. So we've got a couple of teams here who have made a ton of moves here in the last couple of days.
Starting with the Raiders.
Yeah, I know we talked about the Raiders a little bit and what was going on over there last episode, but they've made more moves.
They made a lot more moves.
Yeah. So obviously the two biggest takeaways from their free agents moves is a lot of the cap space moving that they were doing, the contract negotiations and renegotiations and the releases that they were doing. I knew they were kind of looking for something big, and they made a big splash. And that is that they signed edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue to a 2-year, $26 million deal.
Oh, yeah.
Also, though, they went out and got some wide receiver help in the form of former Bills wide receiver John Brown on a 1-year, $5.5 million deal.
Which that one I was actually surprised about that they picked up, because I was expecting another team to pick him up.
I'm surprised the Bills let him go.
Well, because he was also on that high
he was only set to make about $7.5 million this coming year with the Bills. But I mean, I guess with once again, this is probably all coming back to the whole limited cap space issue.
Yeah.
Another move that the Raiders have made is several re-signings. They have re-signed defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins. They've re-signed wide receiver Zay Jones. And they've re-signed guard/tackle Denzel Good. And the reason why I call him guard/tackle is because he actually played both positions last year.
And don't forget, they also re-signed...
I'm getting to that. Give me a second. But Denzel Good filled in for both Richie Incognito, who was also signed to a new deal after being released last week. But Denzel Good, he filled in for Incognito and he filled in for Trent Brown when they were both injured. And of course, Cognito plays left guard and Trent Brown played right tackle. So he played both positions and he performed admirably at it. He didn't have the best of seasons. There were a couple of letdowns, but he played pretty well.
And he was also one of the people they could end up backing up and saying he actually did good for the situation they were in.
Yeah. Now, getting into the trades that they recently did, they traded right tackle Trent Brown and a 2022 7th round pick to the Patriots for a 2022 5th round pick. Now, a lot of these trades I'm going to be going over here in the next couple of and the next one's like, I'm not happy with the outcomes of them. Now, I'm not so upset about the trading of Trent Brown. I'm disappointed in the return, mainly because when Trent Brown plays well, he's worth more than a 5th-round pick.
Yeah. But
given that said, his injuries over the last couple of years, while he's been with the Raiders, have limited his production. So I guess I can kind of understand him falling down like that.
And it's like he basically the Patriots are taking a coin toss on him because if his injuries does affect him and it ends up being, well, he does get injured again. Mm-hmm. At least they didn't give up a big pick for someone who.
They're not even losing. Well, they're not even losing that pick for this year. They're losing it for next year.
Yeah.
So they've got time to make up for that. And of course, Trent Brown's best season was with the Patriots. So he's going back to the team that he actually had his Pro Bowl year in.
Yeah.
So I guess that could turn out good for them if he ends up, being able to produce the same way.
Yep.
The next trade, the one that I'm upset with for multiple reasons, is the trading of center Rodney Hudson to the Cardinals. Now, they traded Rodney and a 7th-round pick, a 2021 7th-round pick, for a 2021 3rd-round pick. I'm sorry. You only got a 3rd-round pick for Rodney Hudson? The man is worth at least a 2nd round.
Yeah, and
you telling me you're giving up Rodney Hudson, arguably the best center in the NFL right now, regardless of age, and a 7th-round pick for only a 3rd-round pick? Are you fucking kidding me? That is asinine.
But it's like that's probably the only that was probably the best deal out there that they were able to get. You also got to think about that too.
I'm sorry though, I would not have given up Rodney Hudson. Honestly, for me, I wouldn't have put him up on the trade block in the first place.
But
it just wouldn't. It wouldn't have occurred to me to do it in the first place. I don't care how much money you're freeing up on getting rid of him. He's still solid. He's been solid for you ever since you signed him away from Kansas City.
And now he is going to the Cardinals.
And now he's going to go make he's going to go make Kyler Murray. He's going to go make Kyler Murray that much better of an offense in his offense. You basically have just elevated the Cardinals to at least a divisional round team.
And because since they have J.J. Watt as a...
But remember, J.J.'s on the defense. It's different situation.
But that is definitely going to help their defense, too, because their defense now just got a little bit stronger with that one.
Yeah. It's just... Look, they re-signed Denzel Good, which is, pardon the pun, really good, because he did play well last year, but it just... Getting rid of Rodney Hudson, yes, I understand you brought back Richie Incognito, so you shored up that left side of the line, but that and the loss of Gabe Jackson to the Seahawks in the trade, and they only got a 5th-round pick for Gabe Jackson.
Doesn't the Raiders have a 1st-round pick for this season?
I haven't. Well, I mean, I'm sure they do. I don't know where they're at.
Because if they do, they might have traded him away because they see another center that is just as good or even better, who could be better than he is.
But generally, you don't have rookie offensive linemen starting their first year because they're not ready for that. Because it's a different mental process playing in college than it is playing in the NFL. I mean, yes, I'm sure transferring from the playing offensive line in college to playing offensive line in the NFL is not that big of a thing as compared to other positions like wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks.
It's mostly mental.
Yeah, it's just... the game is a little faster pace at the NFL level. So, sorry, that would be coming out from the street. But yeah, the game is a little bit faster pace. So I understand there is still that adjustment period, but it's not as big a one. So I mean, I guess look at Colton Miller. He was able to make up for a bad rookie season, and he's been a solid guy at left tackle ever since. So I mean, maybe they could pull out something else. They do have Tom Cable as their offensive line coach, who's a really good offensive line coach.
Yeah.
So maybe he can work his magic. I really don't like
the trade away.
The trade, especially the trade of Rodney Hudson, and I really don't like what we've gotten back for trading away these three solid guys.
So,
next up is the myriad of moves that the New England Patriots have made. Go ahead, take it away.
So they actually stole Nelson Aguilar, wide receiver from the Raiders, to a 2-year, $26 million deal, which was a good choice, good pickup from the Patriots, and a steal from the Raiders.
Yeah, especially if he can produce the same way he did for the Raiders with New England, then yeah, it was definitely a good move. It was actually kind of a surprise for me to see that the Raiders didn't re-sign Aguilar, especially with them letting Tyrell Williams go.
Same, because it's like he was really good with the team. He meshed with the team well, and that was probably a key piece to the offense where they could have easily made playoffs. They just ended up not making it this year because of other injuries that happened.
Yeah.
But let's think about it. If the injuries never happened, they would make playoffs, and I guarantee make it to at least the second round.
That, and they needed work on that defense, which looks like they're actually investing in.
Which is probably what they're trying to use the cap space for.
Yeah.
And then we also have Hunter Henry, a tight end who signed for a 3-year, $37.5 million.
Which is probably another steal from the Chargers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I thought Hunter Henry was the future at the tight end position for the Chargers. Like, I'm surprised that they let him go.
But he was also getting paid a little bit more, and they probably need to free up space to sign another player to keep their offense or defense just as good.
Yeah. And then this next one's probably the biggest steal of free agency so far.
An edge rusher, Matthew Judon, a 4-year, $56 million.
And they steal him away from the Ravens.
Which I'm not surprised, because since
they're paying Lamar Jackson too much money.
Yeah,
for the production, the limited production they've gotten out of him. Yeah, they've got a couple of winning seasons behind him, but they don't have much to show other than that.
But since Lamar has taken over, how many times have they made playoffs, and how many times have they actually even made the Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, they made the playoffs every year he started, and they've never made the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
So
they are a playoff caliber team. But they needed this piece to stay there to try to even force a Super Bowl contending team.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Baltimore does next year.
So it will be definitely a fun season to watch, plus the rest of this offseason.
Yeah.
Then we also have Kyle Venant, a linebacker who signed for 2 years, $13.2 million.
Yeah, returning to the Patriots, where he started his career at.
Yeah.
After playing, what was it, a year? Was it a year or 2 years they played with the Dolphins?
He played with the Dolphins for 2 years, and then he went back to the Patriots. So he played with the Patriots for multiple seasons.
Won a Super Bowl with them, if I remember right.
He won one Super Bowl. He went over in free agency. Patriots didn't want to sign him. He went over to the Dolphins for 2 seasons. Strengthened up their line, and now he's going back over to the Patriots, which I think it's a good move for him personally, but a bad move for Dolphins letting him go.
Yeah, definitely.
Now we have John U. Smith, a tight end who signed for 4 year, $50 million.
Yeah, so that's probably even bigger signing than Hunter Henry. But a lot of people are kind of comparing the set of them to when the Patriots had both Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez several years ago.
Yeah.
The tandem of those two tight ends working together. A lot of people are kind of making comparisons to them and Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith being, this could be like that second kind of coming of that style of offense for the Patriots.
Yeah, and it, this one is definitely a good move for them. So I'm definitely gonna be interested to see how well they play this season.
Yeah.
Then we also have Kendrick Bourne, a wide receiver who signed for 3 years, $22.5 million.
Yeah, and that was a good signing by them. He's
yeah.
a solid wide receiver.
And I guarantee it's like any other team would probably paid him more, but I guarantee he wanted to end up with the Patriots, so he signed with the Patriots.
Yeah.
And then we have a re-sign which I am not happy about because he does not play well. He relies too much on his feet. It's Cam Newton for a 1 year, $13.6 million.
Yeah.
Because he did not play well at all this last season.
He had moments of old Cam with the Panthers, but then he also had moments of bad Cam with the Panthers.
And
and unfortunately, the bad moments outweigh the good moments by a significant margin.
And it's like the bad Cam is basically 80% of what the Patriots got with him.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, they made playoffs, but they got knocked out. What, wild card?
I mean, yeah, a lot of the moves that they've made, they've got him some actual solid weapons.
But it comes down to him relying on passing the ball because whenever he sees a open spot, he takes it and he runs.
Yeah, and of course he had solid weapons in Carolina. He just couldn't make use of them.
And what I mostly saw this last season, a lot of the plays I saw when he was on offense and looking to throw the ball, there was multiple players open that could easily got him 10 to 12 yards, at least just for a first down, but he ran the ball for 5 or 6 yards. And that was a big toll on the team because instead of getting the yardage that they should have gotten, he decided to take it into his own hands and got less yards than they would have.
Yeah.
So that was definitely an irritating piece.
Honestly, I think when it comes to Cam, I think that loss to Denver in the Super Bowl still hangs over him.
Oh yeah.
And I think because he basically started to spiral down after that.
Because he made though, but his big ass downfall with that one, he thought he was better than what was it, Peyton Manning at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that was his downfall. He thought he was better than Peyton Manning and thought it was gonna be an easy win. I'm sorry, it's Peyton Manning. It's not gonna be that easy. Not to mention
how amazing their defense, the Denver defense was that year.
Their defense was unstoppable and their offense was almost impeccable.
Yeah. And I just don't think he's ever gotten over that loss. I think, like I said, I think that still hangs over him today, which is why mentally he can't handle the pressures of being a starting quarterback anymore.
No, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up signing again to another team next season. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as a backup.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots go out and find a better quarterback before the start of the season.
Oh, in the draft.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a bite in his butt for that one because
I think if you're going to get anything out of Cam, you got to give him some kind of competition there at the quarterback level.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure. And what another way to get another competition out of him? Pick up a quarterback and have him start. Have Cam start in the 4 preseason games, and basically, if they end up having a 5th preseason game, have the new quarterback start, and then just see how he can do as a starter. If they like him, start in the first week. and that will really bite Cam.
Yeah.
Because it will really take him off. And then now we have a trade with Marcus Cannon, which I don't like really. It's like, yes, it will help the Texans. I don't like the trade at all. But the trade goes with Marcus Cannon going away from the Patriots, also going with them a 2021 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick going to the Texans, and the Texans returning for a 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick for this year too.
So the Patriots are moving up in the draft while the Texans are getting Marcus Cannon and falling back.
Yeah, and the only falling back about
not much.
About
the Patriots didn't have a much better record than the Texans.
Between 8 to 10 picks, they're really only dropping about that much, but that can make a world of a difference.
Yeah, but I mean, for the picks that they're getting, 4th, 5th, 6th, those are mid to late round picks. By that time, you're basically just filling out depth positions anyways.
But you never know. You've seen.
I mean, yeah. Look at Tom Brady. He was drafted in the 6th round, the last pick of the 6th round. Tom Brady? No, he was.
Tom Brady.
Yeah,
yeah.
He was the last pick of the 6th round, which I think they deem Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah,
or something like that, and so.
And they thought.
Look at what happened with him. So who knows?
They thought it's like, hey, he's not gonna be that good. He's just gonna be a decent backup, and look where he is now. He now has 7 rings, and he actually played with. Actually, he made a team that was okay into a great team.
Yeah.
Just from adding that player on top of Gronk. Those two made the world of a difference for the Bucks.
Yeah. But that's about it for the signings and trades that have happened over the last several days. I guess the last thing we really have to kind of talk about is Drew Brees.
Yep, and his career was definitely one to remember, with a lot that happened with him, starting with the San Diego, going into the Saints after 5 seasons, and
yeah,
it was definitely a good choice to end up with the Saints after those 5 seasons and end with the Saints after 15.
Yeah. Of course, he was drafted in 2001 in the 2nd round, the 32nd pick by the Chargers, and he had mixed results for his time in San Diego. They were the San Diego Chargers at the time, obviously.
And he only played 1 game in his first season because of an injury.
Yeah, to at the time, their starting quarterback. But he was planned to basically take over. The reason why they had brought in Doug Flutie to take over as the starting quarterback for that first year he was there was to essentially train up Drew Brees for him to be able to take over.
Yep, and he played 16 games that next season, I believe.
Yeah, for the next several seasons. Of course, he amassed a total of 38 wins to 28 losses while he was with San Diego for 12,348 yards.
30 wins, 28 losses. You said 28.
I thought I said, okay, sorry. 30 wins, 28 losses with 12,348 yards, 80 touchdowns to 53 interceptions, and had a total of a 84.9 passer rating. So he had some success, but he didn't have a lot of success while he was with San Diego.
He also didn't have a lot of people to really hit when he was passing, because he was definitely more of a pocket quarterback.
Well, and here's the thing too. There's a very, very notable San Diego player who was also taken in that very same draft in the 1st round, a guy we all know by the name of LT, LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah.
Or Tomlinson, sorry. Who is a Hall of Fame running back.
Yeah.
From his time with the Chargers. And so, naturally, of course, when you've got a star player like LT, any quarterback is going to take a back seat to his production.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of understandable that he didn't have huge numbers while he was there in San Diego. It's just that his production was very up and down, mixed, to the point to where when there was a front office change with the general manager, there was, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the whole potential change with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and the conference of I can't say that word. Basically a butting of heads between the general manager and the quarterback.
Well, it wasn't even. It was more between the Chargers general manager and their head coach at the time, Marty Schottenheimer, the late Marty Schottenheimer, who recently passed away a few weeks ago. So they were constantly butting heads. Marty Schottenheimer wanted to give Drew Brees the chance that he felt that Drew deserved because he saw the potential there. But the GM, who for the life of me I can't remember the name of, he was not sold on Drew Brees, largely because he was drafted by another GM. And like I said, when you have front office change, when you have a head coach change, a lot of times it ends up being star players who were drafted before they came in end up being the casualties of that turnover.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the case here because obviously in 2004 they drafted Phillip Rivers.
Yeah. And that was definitely a key piece of what you knew that they weren't going to keep Drew Brees very, very much longer.
Yeah, and of course the first year that Phillip Rivers was with the team, he was actually the third string quarterback behind Doug Flutie, who was the backup quarterback for Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Now, it so happened that the new GM who had recently taken over, who drafted Phillip Rivers, he wanted Phillip Rivers to eventually be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And so I think it was 2004. They went 9-7 in that last game of the season.
Yeah,
they were 9-6, and Drew Brees was starting that game, even though I think they had already clinched a playoff spot.
Yeah, and then he got a shoulder injury.
Yeah, it was gruesome. There was actually some thought that he would never play football again because it was in his right shoulder, which had to be surgically repaired.
And
so
luckily enough, he was able to get repaired and play that next season.
Yeah.
Which he got lucky because not a lot of people come back from that one.
Yeah. And then, of course, he was let go by the Chargers. And then
in 2005. And
after the 2005 season, he was let go by the Chargers. Then he was signed before the 2006 season by...
Who else?
The New Orleans Saints.
And... he was there for the next 15 seasons, and that was probably one of the best pickups that the Saints could have been. I actually saw a video not too long ago that, in commemorance of Tom Brady's retirement, and
Drew Brees.
Thank you, Drew Brees. I don't know why I said Tom Brady.
We're talking a lot about. Yeah,
but,
no, I get what you.
But with Drew Brees being probably one of the best hype man in the NFL to his team.
Yeah.
He literally before every game, he would come up with a different cheer. And he would literally hype up the team to win. And look, they actually did extremely well.
Well, I think he's credited as the creator of the Who Dat chant.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
He started off with the Who Dat, and he just kept progressing.
Yeah.
And you can even ask a lot of his former players that they liked Tom Brady, not Drew Brees, when he did that because that actually bumped up their performance.
Yeah. And then, of course, 3 years after coming over to the Saints in Super Bowl 44, the New Orleans Saints lock up that first franchise Super Bowl win against the Indianapolis Colts against Tom Brady, but Peyton Manning. See, I almost did it too.
Against Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning and the Colts, yeah. And I remember,
I believe it was a 31-17 win, if I'm correct.
I don't remember the actual score, but I do remember the game, and I remember probably the most pivotal moment was when they came out of halftime and they kicked that onside kick to start the second half, and they recovered it.
That shocked everybody.
Like, nobody had ever done it before.
No one does that.
I mean, especially when you've already got the lead, because
And,
I mean they were. I mean it was a slim lead, mind you, but they already had the lead,
but
and
I
it was
guarantee they knew what Peyton Manning it was capable of, and they wanted to
of
make sure
course,
they wanted to make sure he couldn't get the ball right away.
yeah,
And what did they do? They kick an onside kick right away, and they get the ball back.
yeah, and then of course the game was ultimately sealed by the Joey Porter interception of Peyton Manning.
Oh, that one was a miracle. I love that.
Yeah, it's just it was what Saints fans needed that year after suffering the horrific damage and destruction from Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, and Drew Brees definitely actually donated a good amount of money to help that.
Yeah.
And
He has become an icon in New Orleans, and I think he will be for a long time,
he
probably forever.
and here's the funny thing.
Excuse my heater for going on in the background.
He he's gum. I would be surprised if he's not admitted into the Hall of Fame with the next 3 years. I would be surprised.
Yeah, well, I think
Because
you have to be out of the league for a couple of years before you can even go on the ballot.
at least 2 years.
Yeah,
And
something like that.
So that's why I'm like his first year being able to go into the Hall of Fame. I would be surprised if he's not.
Yeah. And then, of course, so his total stats for his time with the Saints was 142 wins to 86 losses,
68,010 yards passing,
491 touchdowns,
190 interceptions with 101.5 passing rating.
Yeah. So that means if you add up his totals with the Saints and the Chargers, he gets a 172 wins to 114 losses,
80,358 passing yards.
which is a record,
Yes.
career record right now. He holds the career record for most passing yards for a QB. He also holds the career record for passing touchdowns with 571.
Which not even Tom Brady. I want to say Tom Brady is
He's very close
he's close, but
in both the passing yards and touchdowns.
But I want to say he's about 4,000 away from passing yards. I want to say he's 15 touchdowns away from the TDs.
Something like that.
But Drew Brees also threw 243 interceptions, which is actually not bad for 20 seasons.
Yeah.
Because that would literally make it basically just over like 10 interceptions a season.
Yeah.
And then his passing rating out of his entire career is a 98.7.
Yep. So, I mean, those are some of the best stats ever held by an NFL quarterback. Obviously, like we said, the passing yards and touchdowns are a career record.
And he also holds the record being one of the only quarterbacks to hold that, being able in his career being able to hold the most 5 TD games, 4 TD games, 3 TD games on top of 300 plus yards and 400 plus yards in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Which no other QB has been able to do.
So, I'm sorry, Tom Brady, you're not the GOAT, even though you have more Super Bowl wins. I think Drew Brees is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, he's
as of right now.
He is definitely probably the GOAT for the NFL.
Yeah.
All-time GOAT, we're not unsure still. There's still a
We'll
lot
see.
of numbers.
Yeah. But it is, like I said earlier, it's tough to see him go, but we're glad that it's not because he's being forced out. You know, he went out, he literally went out on top. Yeah, he lost the NFC Championship game this past year.
But it's like you also saw right after he lost to Tom Brady in the divisional round, if you actually watch and saw a post, both after Tom Brady and Drew Brees got changed, they both ended up going back to the field with their kids, and they ended up hugging it out because They
Well, they knew
for
that
them,
was it.
yeah, they knew.
They knew that was going to be the last time that they faced each other on the field.
Yeah, and it was definitely a memorable one.
Yeah, but
Because
I mean, not many.
because both of them put up a good fight.
Yeah, not many legendary quarterbacks can sit there and lay claim to what Drew Brees, can lay claim to. Obviously, he leaves the league as the record holder for passing yards and passing touchdowns, but he leaves the league as a starter. He kept his job, except for the few times that he went out with injury. I don't think he ever lost the starting job in New Orleans
Nope.
because of bad play.
No, the only time he lost it was while he was injured for a little bit.
Yeah.
But right when he was,
And then of course that was happening, a little bit more and more over the last couple of years. So I think that was probably a factor into why he decided to call it a career.
Yeah, and he was also one of the few that were able to be in the playoffs
Consistently.
Yeah, consistently, at least making it 12 out of his 15 seasons with the Saints.
Yeah. Yeah, there were only a couple of years he did not make it to the playoffs.
And it was by a single game. That was it. There really wasn't very many games in between him and playoffs that really just kept him out of playoffs.
Yeah, because, and the whole thing about him going out, basically, like I said, on top, a lot of legendary quarterbacks, you look back and they, by the time they've retired, they had basically overstayed their welcome in the league. They had lost the starting job to someone else. They were a backup for a couple of years before they decided to call it quits. Just take a look at Eli Manning. And it's really nice when you can see someone you can recognize as a legend like Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and a couple others who have, I wouldn't say called it quits in their prime, because obviously both Peyton and Drew were well past their prime, but were still performing at a high level when they decided to call it quits.
It's like they were playing like they were still in the prime.
Yeah. And, I know the last year that Peyton played with Denver wasn't great. Did he? No, I think he did play one more season after they won the Super Bowl, right?
No, he caught it
after they won that Super Bowl. Okay. So he literally went out on top.
Because he got his second ring and he left.
Yeah, okay.
Because that was actually the end of his contract too.
Okay.
Because they would have had
I don't know why I remember that differently, but yeah, so it's like I said, it's nice to see when legends can leave on a high note. Like, yes, I understand Drew Brees lost to Tom Brady and it was not really a close game, and the Bucs outplayed New Orleans in that game, which was shocking.
Yeah.
But going on, looking back and seeing what the Bucs did to New Orleans, seeing what they did to Green Bay, seeing what they eventually went on to do to Kansas City in the Super Bowl, it's a little understandable.
Yeah.
And so it's not as, it's not as deflating as when they lost in the playoffs the previous couple of years to basically bad calls.
Yeah. Because the bad calls is like, that ended up being, it's like you had Mahomes, who the refs favored anyway, and then you have Tom Brady, who the refs favored. So it's like they really had to call the game how it needed to be played, because refs favored both of them.
Yeah.
And so they actually had to call plays. Yes, there was a few questionable plays, but
yeah. But I can safely say that I am a fan of the career of Drew Brees, because not many people can sit there and come back and actually come back better the way he did.
Yeah.
So, Drew, I just want to say this. If somehow this ever reaches your ears, thank you. Thank you for everything you did as a player. Thank you for a lot of the things that you did as a person. I may not have liked everything that you did. There were some years you screwed me over in fantasy football. But for the most part, you were a joy to watch.
And probably one of the best people to even be around if you were able to.
So, like I said, thank you, and I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors.
I would not be surprised if you end up as a head coach. It would not be a bad job. You would not
That
be
would
a
not.
bad
That would be nice. Like maybe see him come back and coach the Saints.
Oh, that would be fun.
You know, take over for Sean Payton, or even come back as offensive coordinator for Sean Payton in a couple years.
Offensive coordinator. Oh, that would be the best spot for him because being able to read the defense, you'd be able to have them change plays on a dot.
But I think he has plans to take a few years off and, spend time with his family, which he's earned at this point.
Yeah, because if he does come back as a coach, it will be probably 5-6 years down the line, so he can actually have a few years just with his family.
Yeah. But, guys like Drew Brees, it's tough for them to stay away from the game for long.
Yeah.
You usually do end up seeing them come back in a coaching capacity.
So.
But with that, that's about all we have for today. I want to thank everybody who's listening for joining us again. And please, if you know anybody who would like the show, please share it. And for the listeners out there, I know we're not getting a whole lot right now. We are just starting, though. If you could please subscribe, like our videos, share our videos, and then I am working hard to get this stuff up on other channels so we can get more listeners and stuff.
Also, leave a comment down below if you want to hear us talk about something.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. We love y'all. Until the next one, we'll see you later.
Bye.